Right now, as we do on Mondays, we are going to talk some politics with Aaron Van Allen, professor of government at Liberty University. We got some state stories to get to here, and then we'll see if we can get some time for a little bit more of the national outlook. Aaron, good morning. Welcome back to the program.
Brian, Mary Biscuit, thanks so much for having me back this morning.
It is our pleasure. So, obviously, we've been talking, like everybody else in the state, it seems, about redistricting. The vote now is going to go on. The Supreme Court will decide afterward whether it's going to count or not. Essentially, we won't get so much into that today. Democrats have a huge money advantage as far as getting the word out on this. What are Republicans going to do to counter that? What can we expect in the next few weeks leading up to the referendum?
Well, it seems that Republicans have already figured out that the messaging, which costs them not only those that they're massive or have put them in a massive deficit in the House of Delegates right now, but also cost them all three statewide seats back in November because of, again, very poor messaging. It seems that they're trying to build upon that and trying to correct that. And so you have several leaders within the Republican Party, whether that be former members of the Virginia General Assembly, whether that be the former acting Attorney General Jason Miyares, or even the former House Majority Leader that represented what was then the previous 7th Congressional District, by a gentleman by the name of Eric Cantor. They've actually come out and they've voiced some of their opposition to the redistricting referendum. But you've also had those, say, for example, like Congressman Ben Cline, who currently represents the 6th Congressional District, that he's come forward and he has created a 501c4 organization to assist with the grassroots efforts of getting the messaging out there. And the message is just quite simple. It's to convince everybody to vote no on the redistricting ballot that's going to come out in April. And they've continued to state that the wording of the ballot, the wording of the referendum is very confusing, that it's actually not fair, that Democrats are continuously discussing how they need to have fair representation in fair districts throughout the Commonwealth, and stating that and Republicans are stating this is the complete opposite of that. So it does seem as if they're trying to get their ducks in a row, and that they're trying to keep from, again, what happened back in November, to have another detrimental election happen in April, so that they're further not put into the minority throughout the Commonwealth itself. So we're going to see if these messaging efforts actually work, and if that's actually going to motivate individuals and motivate citizens to get out to the polls to vote. Because we have to remember that not only is this a balloting referendum that's happening in April, but this is something where nothing else is on the ballot. There's no other referendums. There's no other constitutional amendments. There's nobody to vote for. So we're really wondering whether or not there's going to be high voter turnout overall. That's what Republicans are trying to ensure does occur, because if any initiative, whether it's voting for Republicans or voting for Republican initiatives, Republicans need Republican voters to get out to vote. So it seems as if this is the central message for everybody to get out to the polls and to vote no on the overall redistricting campaign.
You know, I have to say that doesn't sound terribly hopeful for Republicans to me. Just for one thing, having President Trump in office but not on the ballot. Obviously, we've seen how that has hurt Republicans, not just in Virginia by any stretch of the imagination. And then it's the one issue, and this is the part that really I can't figure out, is will Republicans be motivated to keep what they have, or are Democrats so up in arms over what's going on in the rest of the country, and once again with the administration, that they will be the ones who turn out? And I have no idea. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I actually think it's going to be the latter point. Democrats are really the ones that actually Democrats are the ones that normally, when they are the ones proposing something, or it's their party that's in the majority, many times they are the ones that actually are going to turn out. And this has been kind of the same song, different verse for the past 20 years, that generally speaking, if you're going to do a head-to-head comparison of Democrats versus Republicans, looking at their grassroots efforts, or Democrats versus Republicans actually getting out to vote, Democrats are normally the ones that they are the ones that are much more mobilized. I've heard some people give different theories for it, as serious or as silly as some of those arguments may be as to why that is the case. But nonetheless, Democrats are seemingly the ones that have more so of an advantage over Republicans. That's not to say that Republicans aren't motivated to get out to the polls. It just seems that Democrats, at least from a grassroots effort, but also from a messaging campaign historically, have done a little bit better job than Republicans have. That has changed, however, since Trump has been in office. His ability to utilize new forms of technology, his ability to communicate with his base, he's been very successful in that. The question, therefore, becomes is that with some of the unpopularity that he has right now in office and the way that some of his polling numbers are trending is, well, he's not on the ballot. Is that going to motivate his base to get out to vote? There's no congressional elections right now. We're not going to see that until November. Are people going to be motivated to take, again, are they going to take one day out of 45 days to get out and just go vote on one very specific thing? I think that's what we're all going to be looking at to see just how far in advance voters are getting out to the polls.
Now, we have Democrats at loggerheads over the budget. They're about $2.5 billion bucks apart over the 2 years. And the biggest thing appears to be getting rid of the data center tax break, which is about $1 billion a year that the state doesn't collect in order to encourage more data centers to be built and to make more money for itself in the long run. State Senator Louise Lucas, here maybe more important that she's head of the Finance Committee, wants to end that. She wants to spend that money on school construction, covering federal programs, whatever else it might be. The Speaker, Don Scott, had a press conference with union workers, say, look, we need this. We need to keep building these. We want these good jobs. Looks like the governor is on his side, and the governor, of course, does have a line item veto. So what is going to happen here? Do the Speaker and the governor prevail in the end?
Yeah, I think that is going to be the case. I think that Speaker Scott and I think Governor Spanberger, that they're ultimately going to get their way. If you've seen, and number one is because of the overwhelming support that Speaker Scott has in the House of Delegates. Now you do have those that have voiced some opposition to those data center taxes, but overall, he generally has some solid support. And I also think that Governor Spanberger, that she has stated that she's generally been supportive of it, and the reason being is that a lot of these data centers and some of those proposals are actually going to come in parts of the old 7th Congressional District that she used to represent in Congress. So obviously that's going to have a home feel for her, if you will. But you've had many members of the General Assembly that have also voiced their concerns, or they've given their own thoughts on the matter as well. Senator Creed Deeds, he's a Democrat from Charlottesville. He's actually serving as one of the budget conferees as well, trying to figure out ultimately how they're going to make up those differences between the House and the Senate versions of the budget. He's come forward and he has stated, and I'm paraphrasing here, that they have to know about what resources are ultimately there before they can actually move forward with a lot of those discussions. And so I ultimately think that Scott and that Spanberger are going to get their way, and the reason being is because if you look at some of the other areas within the budget that are kind of your sticking points, if you will, say, for example, like you mentioned, Brian, building out schools, or even trying to build, say, for example, money for School of Medicine at Virginia Tech, more specifically Carilion, looking at some of the different partnerships that are going on between different institutions, say, for example, George Mason and Avery University. I think that those, I don't know that necessarily all of those are ultimately going to come into fruition for one way or another. And I think that the data center positions are ultimately going to be successful because of the number of jobs that they're talking about bringing into the area. But more importantly, we've actually seen Governor Spanberger be pretty sympathetic to one of the former initiatives by Governor Youngkin, even though publicly she hasn't said this, but her policies have been very supportive of it. And that's continuing to build upon just the bare roots infrastructure that Governor Youngkin was able to establish in very rural parts of the Commonwealth, but also in more industrialized zones as well. So again, water, electricity, broadband expansion, all of those sites are now ready for these data centers to actually be expanded or to be built. And so therefore, I think Governor Spanberger, that she has already shown her sensitivity to that. So I think that this is something that is going to ultimately keep hold as we finish out this entire budget cycle.
Now, Terry, let's skip straight to the Attorney General here, Pam Bondi, for the end of this. And she has been in and out of favor with the president and with the GOP, depending on what's going on with the Epstein files. She's had a tough time prosecuting some of the president's enemies. Is she going to be next out after Kristi Noem?
Yeah, she's certainly on the chopping block right now, and the reason being is because there's a lot of Republicans that feel as if Democrats really have the upper hand over her right now, and we've actually seen that she is, excuse me. We've actually seen that she's scheduled to testify this upcoming week before members of Congress again. And this is actually after last week, 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, when she went before the House Judiciary Committee, and there were members of her own party that were asking her very specific questions, say, for example, on Second Amendment rights, about the Epstein files, et cetera, et cetera. And it didn't really seem as if she had really good answers for them, other than just to continue reiterating, this is an ongoing investigation and we don't really have anything else for you. The Republicans didn't seem pleased with that whatsoever. And so you've seen those, say, for example, like Representative Glenn Grothman, he's a Republican from Wisconsin. He said that he's actually going to continue pressing the attorneys general over efforts about elections. You have Representative Kevin Kiley. He's again a Republican from California. Stated that he's going to continue, as he already has in previous hearings. He's going to try to continue pressing her about the department's works on what he called the rights of parents, particularly the rights of parents within education as well. And then, of course, you have those like Representative Thomas Massey from Kentucky. He's continued to really build a case against her because of the Epstein saga itself. So this is something that I think if she doesn't get her act in order quickly, that President Trump, from even some of his staunchest supporters within the Republican Party, are going to put pressure, are going to try to put some pressure on the White House to get somebody else in there, particularly as the midterm elections are moving forward. And I'm going to be interested to see if Trump is ultimately going to make a move on that. But she is certainly the next cabinet official that is front and center that could potentially be on the chopping block.
And any rumors as to who might replace her?
You know what? I've heard a few different rumors of different folks. Some members of Congress have actually come up. So I think, number one, you look at those like Jim Jordan. He's the House Judiciary Committee chair. You know, his name has been floated around a little bit. You've also seen some within the Senate as well. Their names have been have thrown around those. For example, like Ted Cruz. You know, their names have continued to pop up. Trump hasn't necessarily indicated who it is that he would support in that regard, but members of Congress you've seen specifically members of Congress in their names, especially folks that have been there for some time. They've seemingly started to get a minute amount of support. I think it's going to be interesting to see ultimately who the president puts on his short list.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Aaron Van Allen, professor of government at Liberty University, thanks for joining us this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back, guys.